You're saying no racists in California? Come on, there's no way. Ever been to Venice? I've seen some. I lived in California too. I've definitely seen. I've seen racists everywhere. Yeah, definitely some neo-Nazis in California. Hey, all right. You got 5 minutes to talk?
Yes, I will. Sure.
Great. What's your name?
Casey.
Casey. All right, Casey. Well, that ties in perfectly because we're talking about the all these protests there a couple days ago here about the Roe v. Wade situation.
Sure, absolutely.
Have you been following that?
Yes.
Okay. So first, let me ask you: you consider yourself pro-choice, pro-life, pro-choice with limitations? How would you define?
I'm definitely pro-choice.
Okay.
You know, I'm definitely pro-choice.
Okay. What's your opinion on it's a leak right now, obviously.
Sure.
But if it's true, the overturning of Roe v. Wade?
It's ridiculous. You know, as a woman, I think it's astronomical how we could consider, and no offense to you, but how a heterosexual male can tell me what I should and should not do with my body.
Okay.
And what that actually means. I think there's so many stipulations that go into this. You know, there's a lot of circumstances. And just so you know, I was told I couldn't have children.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. But so this topic is like super sensitive to me and of course to my family. But I know
because you wouldn't need to have an abortion.
I wouldn't need to have one, but let's just say the opportunity ever arose itself. There's all kind of medical conditions and reasons, topical pregnancies, tubal pregnancies, things that have happened to your body that require abortions for medical reasons for us as women to like literally live and survive.
Mm-hmm.
So for you to say you're forcing me to either go through that experience and or heaven forbid, you know, my kid is, you know, there's all kind of testing that goes on early in your pregnancy.
Sure.
And they'll let you know that there's fluid on the brain for a baby or something like that, and they do not recommend you continuing on with that pregnancy. I'm also 31, and so a lot of us are getting pregnant later in life. So sometimes that's an issue, right? And it could be a health risk for the mother and the baby. So whatever your reasoning is, more importantly, you could just be 18 and decide that that's not the decision that you want to make today and you're not comfortable with that. You could be a victim of rape. I don't care what your reasoning is. I think it's 100% your choice to decide.
So none of those other things matter then? We could have just eliminated all that.
Yeah.
Just you think people should really get an abortion for whatever reason?
I think you should be able to make any decision as far as HIPAA laws are concerned for yourself and your body at any time.
So what is your, because a lot of people have different interpretations or understandings of what the overturning of Roe v. Wade is.
Actually means?
Yeah. What is your interpretation of what would happen if Roe v. Wade is overturned?
My interpretation is that it doesn't matter what your reasoning is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that abortions will now be illegal or released in the state of Texas for anybody.
No.
Correct me.
No, it's not. No, it's and that's it. It just gives the right to states to make their own laws regarding abortion restrictions.
Sure.
So Colorado, you know, New Jersey, Virginia, California, the states that have abortion laws all the way up until and including 9 months, they can still do that.
So let me ask you a question. Do you think Texas is going to vote in which direction?
Well, I don't want to I'll get into my opinion in a second, but I want to sort of discuss the issue of whether we agree on the fact that it's good or bad law. So it's not banning abortion. It puts it back to the states.
I don't agree with that.
Okay. So what do you think should happen? Do you think there should be a federal, it should be enshrined into federal law that abortion is a constitutional right?
I think it took a long time for Roe versus Wade to even become about and to pass. And that if we aren't careful, history will continue to repeat itself over and over again. So the fact that law is what it is, I don't know why we're going back and trying to now tweak that. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, are you, and forgive me, this is not meant to be a gotcha at all. Law is complicated, and Roe v. Wade is complicated. You know, that's why you had Roe v. Wade, then you had Planned Parenthood versus Casey, and it's always been a complex issue.
And I'm Casey.
Yes, exactly. See, we tied it, that's called a callback. But Roe v. Wade, the issue was, right, Roe v. Wade was sort of under the guise, it was settled under the guise of the 14th Amendment, the Due Process Clause.
Okay.
So there's no constitutional right to an abortion.
Okay.
And essentially because you just mentioned sort of the HIPAA laws. And the idea was that under the Due Process Clause, there's a right to privacy, which also isn't necessarily a constitutional right. But under the Due Process Clause, that a woman had that right to privacy with her doctor and allowed states to set limitations only after the first trimester. So it banned states setting limitations within the first trimester.
Absolutely, okay.
And then you have states that, for example, have had like a heartbeat bill, things that occur before the second trimester. That kind of kicked it up to the Supreme Court, and they looked at it, and this is something that even Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, where they said, you know what, this is just sort of bad law, so it has to go back to the states.
Okay.
So that was the basis for Roe v. Wade. Does that change your opinion at all, that there's no constitutional right to an abortion?
Not necessarily, because when we talk about first trimester, I also don't agree that after your first trimester you should be looking at options as far as abortion, right? Because at this point, your fetus is a full-grown fetus. You know, there's things that are happening, your baby's developing. So I understand up until that point.
Okay.
But on a state-to-state basis or a federal basis, to me, I guess in that first trimester, it's still up to me and my doctor.
So it sounds to me like you're saying you do support eliminating abortion as an option after the first trimester.
I do. I agree with that.
Okay. What changes, for example, from week 11 to week 12 that makes it no longer acceptable?
Eyeballs, fingers, toes, hair. I mean, you know, you're going from this small cell. I mean,
But that happens before the second trimester.
Well, but the thing is, why is Plan B a thing, right? There's a reason why day after something,
right,
you can go into CVS right now and a young lady can say, I know I did whatever I did last night and I'm going to make sure
Probably
that I protect myself.
So did what I did. I'm assuming sex.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so to me, you saying, okay, here at this point in time, there's people who are, I'm not a doctor, right, obviously.
Right.
I wouldn't be wearing this.
Spoiler alert, neither am I.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can tell.
So, you know, somebody somewhere sat down and said, this makes sense, who gets paid a lot more money than me and understands the anatomy of the human body. But yeah, no, I don't.
But that's kind of the issue though, right? Is no one has sit down and said it made sense. For example, in a place like Colorado, you can have an abortion all the way up until 8-9 months.
Yeah, no, I don't agree with that.
Okay. And that'll still be the law in Colorado.
Sure.
And in Virginia, you know, you had the governor where there were babies who survived abortions and they were still being allowed to die because technically they had tried to abort them. They'll still be allowed to do that in Virginia.
Well, what's the difference between that and some girl throwing herself down the stairs? People are going to do what they want to do when they want to do it.
Well, no, this is about babies who were born who survived abortions and they were just leaving it in a room to die.
Sure, but you're saying in Colorado at 8 months, it's still legal for them to get abortions, which I didn't know. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, so if a lady's 8 months pregnant and she's just in dire whatever mental state and she decides she doesn't want to have that kid, what is to stop her from jumping off the top of this building and or pushing herself down the stairs?
Well, I don't know. Hopefully there'd be some bars on the window.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Right.
But I'm just trying to understand your position because it's something that's obviously a heated issue and I'm trying to see where there is common ground. It sounded to me like you were saying after the second trimester, no abortion, but now it sounds like you're saying, yeah, it should be fine for a place like Colorado to have abortions at 7-8 months.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Okay.
I literally said I do not agree with that.
Okay, so you still think...
But what I don't think is that we should go so far back that we're saying every state should make their own opinion before the first trimester, after the second trimester, because to me, I live in Texas, I'm originally from California, and I know we vote very differently between
I hope that you're not one of those who comes from California and brings your politics here, because you left for a reason, right?
I didn't leave by choice. My parents brought me here.
Oh, okay.
So I think views are going to very much differ in living in the Bible Belt. I've seen, you know, how that can affect people. I've seen how it affects me as a black person, 112%. So
how so? What's the 12?
What's the 12%?
Yeah. What's the 12 past 100?
I literally went to a restaurant when I was 8 years old, and they told my cheerleading coach that I couldn't go into their restaurant because I was black, and that was in Texas, and it would never happen in California. So there's just things that
it definitely happens in California.
Okay. I appreciate talking to you.
Definitely happens in California.
This is really fun.
Okay.
No,
you were saying no racists in California? Come on, there's no way. Ever been to Venice? I've seen some. I lived in California too. I've definitely seen. I've seen racists everywhere. Yeah, definitely some neo-Nazis in California. Thank you.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.